What do you do when you want to have all of the benefits of training, but you don't actually like working out? You don't actually like going to the gym? Well, I know that this is a sin to say in the fitness industry, but the reality is that fitness really isn't for everyone. You could take every single person in the world and train them all the exact same way, train them all exactly as hard as the most dedicated athletes out there. And yes, this would be a good thing for a lot of people, but it would also simply mean a lot of wasted time, simply because the reality is that only a handful of those people, very small percentage, would have the elite genetics required to actually be the best when it comes to athletic performance, and the vast majority of people would just be average, maybe a bit above average, maybe a bit below average, and so on. And of course, many of those people will also simply not enjoy that process. So the reality is that you could really save everybody quite a lot of time, and you could get them basically the exact same result by training them less. The reality is that everyone could be healthier, everyone could really benefit from some consistent training. You just don't have to do it the way an athlete does. And there's this huge confusion between the two. Very often when we talk about fitness, when we talk about health, you get really dedicated exercisers, personal trainers, athletes, and so on who are trying to communicate their maximalist approach to somebody for whom that approach simply would not be a good fit. For those people instead, it would make a lot more sense to take a minimalist approach to minimize the amount of time that you spend at the gym so you can spend the most possible amount of time doing all the other things that you like doing in your life. There are diminishing returns to everything that you do in the gym. That means that basically if I'm talking about, say, a bench press, I do one set of bench press, I'm going to get a huge effect out of doing just that single set of bench press once per week. That doesn't take very long, of course. It might take you something like a minute if you are already at the gym. But of course, most people are not going to recommend that you just do one set of bench press because, of course, you can still get much greater effect out of continuing to do more sets. The reality is that set 2 is going to have a smaller effect than set 1. Set 3 is going to have a smaller effect than set 2, and so on. And so eventually you get to the point of diminishing returns where basically you could be doing a ton more work and only really squeeze out a few additional percentage points of gains simply because you are training so much already. Your body is already getting such a massive volume of training elsewhere. So the reality is that for most folks, you could really get something like 60 to 80% of the gains simply by doing just 1 or 2 major workouts a week, and that's it. Can you imagine if you walked up to a gym and a trainer is like, hey, I want you to do just an hour or 2 of training each week and that's it? Would it be worth your while to do just an hour or 2 of training each week if that was going to significantly expand your lifespan? Of course it would be worth it. What of course might not be worth it is just whether then it's worth spending 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours, etc., trying to train like an athlete to squeeze out every single last percentage point of gains that you can. What's more realistic for most people is that they take a more time-optimized approach, which is to say, you get in a couple workouts, you get out, and you move on with your life. What does a good routine look like for this approach? Well, again, just twice a week. Generally, you're going to get more bang for your buck if you're making both of those workouts full body workouts, training both upper and lower body at the same time. You could split that out and do 1 upper and 1 lower body workout, but you don't necessarily have to. You want to cover all major movement groups. So that's a bench press, an overhead press, a row, a squat, and a deadlift or hip hinge of some kind. You're going to want to train in something like a 5 to 15 rep range. That is a good mix of strength and muscle and endurance for the average lifter. Over time, you want to be sure that you're progressing your program by adding a bit of weight, adding reps, adding sets, and so on. However, you want to do so very, very slowly. A lot more slowly than most people tend to think, and you want to do so in a way that is very sustainable so that you can keep continuing to add, continue to progress in the long run. You're going to want to ignore doing a lot of isolation work. That's the stuff like a lot of those curls that you see gym bros endlessly doing. Isolation work targets individual muscles at once, and so it's going to be a much worse return on your investment in terms of time. You can also use methods to help speed up your workouts. This includes things like drop sets or supersets, which are going to help to, again, just speed up your workouts, and so you can get in, get out, move on with your life. The rest of the week, it is also important to get in some cardio. You could do this in a few different ways. You could just do light cardio in terms of something like a step count that you do every single day. So you could aim for something like 7,500 to 10,000 steps every day. Alternately, you could also just do a couple workouts per week where you just do cardio as well. So you could tack some cardio onto your existing workouts, or you could split those into separate workouts and just do something like 15 to 30 minutes of higher intensity running. Diet-wise, pretty simple. Just make sure that you're consuming something like 100 to 200 grams of protein per day for most people. Whatever you find is a number that you can pretty easily hit. And of course, make sure that you're eating fruits and veggies throughout the day as well to make sure that you are getting in your vitamins and nutrients. You want to minimize but not necessarily eliminate things like junk food, unnecessary sweets, and so on. Those things are going to make it very easy to overeat, very easy to eat way too many calories. And so, of course, while you don't want to cut them out entirely, it is still important to enjoy food, to eat the foods that you enjoy. You do want to keep those to a minimum so that they are not taking over your diet. For most folks, these simple rules will be more than enough to maximize your long-term health and fitness. They can significantly add years to your life without detracting from your quality of life elsewhere. This kind of program is not going to get you as jacked as possible, but that is not the point. It will, however, ensure that you are more jacked and healthy than probably something like 80 to 90% of the people on the planet, because most people are not training consistently, they are not able to consistently go to the gym, and that means as a result that over time your body is atrophying. It is aging, it is slowly falling apart. The hard part of any program, of any sort of self-improvement routine, is not going to be the individual workout or the individual training session. It is going to be the fact that you need to keep showing up consistently for a long period of time, 10 years, 20 years, the rest of your life, and so on. If this is what it takes, if taking a minimalist approach means that it's a lot more sustainable for you to keep doing this over the long run, then that is definitely worth it, because that means, again, that you're going to be better than most people out there. If you train at anything for 10 years straight, consistently, yes, you may not be world class, because not everything is about hard work or effort or training, but you are certainly going to be head and shoulders above most people out there, and you are going to be in a pretty sweet place. So if you don't like working out a ton, that's fine. Just commit to a baseline level of training that you can stick to, and make sure that you stick to it for the long run. So that is all for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, don't hesitate to comment down below, like, subscribe, let me know what you would like to see in future videos. I will talk to you all next week. Have a good one.